Good morning. Good morning. It's Friday. Happy Friday, beautiful souls. For those of you that are able to join me live, I am going to be so excited to see you. Gia will pop a link in the Facebook group for me shortly with this live stream. If you want to hop on Zoom with me, please do. It is lovely to see people's faces and to feel really connected to those in the Reconnection Revolution. If you are on Facebook and tuning in, please just remember, gentle reminder, I can't see your comments, but please leave a comment. It makes a big difference to me knowing your experience as we go through this. What are the things that are landing in your brain? What are you loving? What are you questioning? Don't know if this is right for me. It's all perfect, but the aim of this series is to connect. Good morning, Monica. It is lovely to see you. So as we wind up this particular week, I feel like it's super important that we keep doing a little recap, a little revisit of what are the things that we've covered, because I don't want them to just float lazily into your mind and then lazily out the other side to be forgotten. There are reasons we're talking about the things we're talking about. And yes, as we are in this second season, reconnection to others is the theme, but it's all about getting to know you and how you are connecting, the reasons why you're connecting with other people the way that you do. So on day one, we had the very gorgeous and fabulous Kim Morrison with us, and Kim talked to us about people's different operating styles and the way that they show up, why they make the choices that they do, behave the way they do, dress the way they do, have the kind of jobs that they have, all these different ways of doing things. And as you read through that and learn these different operating styles, you learn so much more about you. And there's those moments of, oh my gosh, I just thought that was the normal for everybody. And then it's like, well, no, maybe not. Maybe we're actually looking at the world through very different lenses. You know, I'm looking at the fabulous Monica, who is on live with me, and she's got this amazing analytical brain, and she can break everything down, and she is behind the scenes doing spreadsheets and workbooks and, you know, like all the fabulous things that make a business like mine run to perfection, and the businesses that she operates run to perfection. I couldn't do that to save myself. In fact, if Noah's Ark relied on that and I was the person on Noah's Ark, the whole thing would have sunk. I just don't have those skills. It's not the filter through which I look at the world and my strengths. So we get to come together. This is connecting with other people that look at the world differently, because we learn so much through the contrasts. It is the contrasts that actually make relationships so delicious and perfect. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my relationship with my husband, Laurie, in the final part of this half an hour before Marcus comes on, because it's going to be a way to draw a lot of these threads together for people. So that was day one with Kim Morrison. Something that I wanted to share that I think is something worth writing down as we go through all these different pieces of connecting more deeply to other people. One of the things that we stumble over, one of the greatest stumbling blocks that we all have is, but what are other people thinking about me? How are they judging me? You know, the clothes that I'm choosing to wear, the job that I'm choosing to do, the way that I'm choosing to raise my children. There's always this sense of unease that we're being judged for the decisions that we're making. So here's something that I would love everybody to try on. How about we think of it like this? My opinion of me and my opinion of you matters more than your opinion of me. I'm the one that gets to decide who's in my life. I'm the one that's opening the door and saying, do you know what? Having you in my home, in my world, makes my world a better place. Welcome. Come in. I want to hang out. My opinion of me matters more than your opinion of me. And if we can grab hold of this and repeat it over and over and over again, we're going to start to shift this need to please everybody else. We're going to start to shift this need for other people's permission. We're going to start to shift the concern and the preoccupation with what everyone else is thinking and their judgment. I've got this beautiful success formula that my clients know well, and it's this. I know I'm successful at the end of this call, at the end of my day, week, year. If I am proud of who I am proud of what I do, and proud of how I do it. It's got nothing to do with what qualifications I have or how much money is in the bank or any of the other things that we use to qualify success. It's all about me. So I invite you to use those two simple concepts. On day 2, we talked to fabulous Marcus Pearce, who's going to be back with us at 11, looking at some of the clues and secrets to longevity, but not longevity for the sake of longevity. We don't want to live to 100 on 25 different medications, unhappy because we have to get out of bed, wondering what the heck we're even doing here and what's this thing called life all about. We want to live to 100, or in my case, I've got 102 is written on my vision. When I get to these beautiful, extraordinary ages, I want to be out of bed knowing why I'm here, knowing what I get to do, the lives that I get to impact, the joy that I get to bring, the safe spaces that I provide, the love that I have for my fellow human beings. I want to be able to move in my body with strength and vitality. I want to be connected to my family and my friends. So what's yours? What's your reason for living? Your life purpose. Marcus talked about it in Being of Service. I think the greatest service we can give the world is to be the most extraordinary person we can be. Because when you walk in a room and light up a room, whether that is at a funeral, at a birthday party, at a business meeting, at a one-on-one lunch with a girlfriend, if you're a place of safety, of non-judgmental energy, of love, acceptance, compassion, kindness, inspiration, I think that's a pretty nice life purpose. We've achieved something pretty amazing. So all you need to concentrate on is, who do I get to be in this situation? Day 3, I kind of shifted the energy a little bit for good reason. For good reason. We get to look at where, from a grassroots movement, we can make a difference to what is causing enormous distress on this planet. And it's loneliness. The powers that be, whoever those powers may be, using loneliness as a weapon, our fear of ostracism. You don't want to walk out the door and jump in a puddle and splash yourself with mud and fall over on your bum, because what are the neighbors going to say? Why do we care? We're so hardwired to fear the judgment of others, the fear of being ostracized. I really want to go to that dance class or that ceramics class or to, whatever the thing is, but, I'm not very good and everyone else is going to be better than me. And, what do they think of me? And they probably wish that I wasn't there because I'm going to hold the class back. And, oh my goodness. The things that we cut off in our lives. And then there's the bigger picture of how we fall into the trap of treating other people in a way that ostracizes them. And we need to look at that in our lives, decisions that we've made. It's all about who we're being. Last night's call was just pure divineness with Barbara Hunt. For anyone that hasn't had a chance to listen, I strongly recommend that you listen. Her energy was beautiful. I always get an extra sense of delight when I introduce the women in my community to other women that just have that energy of like, I just want to lean in and be in your world. The way that she spoke about forgiveness it was really beautiful, all about personal responsibility. The way that she talked about resentment was an aha moment for me. It's really interesting, the power of words and the words that we're using. I feel pretty clean in forgiveness. I don't feel like there's a lot of forgiveness that I need to be offering. I feel like I've done that work. But when she talked about resentment, that was a different thing altogether. And it's interesting. It's interesting. So I really encourage everybody to have a listen and see what comes up for them with that. If you listed out all the little things that perhaps you feel resentful for, the teacher that said something to you at school, the sibling who got more attention or was better at something than you. Yeah, awesome, Liz. Liz is just saying that she's planning to read the first 2 chapters, which Barbara has given us. And you can find the links to that in the Facebook group or via email. But yeah, absolutely. Have a listen, have a read, listen to the interview, and just this work, it's about thinking about it in terms of an ongoing practice. It's not a one and done, right? I'm going to go to a class and I'm going to be sitting in my little lovely Zen pose. Everybody's forgiven. The whole world is forgiven. Now I just get to be free and it's all easy. Wow, we all want it to be that kind of straightforward. It's not quite like that. The more you do this kind of work, the more we're going, I've been doing this work for years. I am the consummate personal development junkie and I love it and it will never end. I will still be doing it when I'm 102 because all the times, no problem, Janet, it's lovely to see you. All the times that I think I'm all over this, I've got this sorted. And the universe goes, no. It's the little voice that goes, yeah, no, there's something else. There's more. And thank goodness, life is this magical journey. It's not a destination. We keep thinking there's this destination. The destination is the day we die. That's the destination. It's who we're being on the journey. I know that sounds like a bumper sticker, but I think the older we get, the more we need reminding of that. It's like, okay, so what's the next adventure? What's the next chapter? What's the next lesson? How do I dive into the wisdom that I've collected? How do I pull all that out, dust it off, look at it, reflect on it, contemplate it? Wow, who was I then? Who was I then? What did I learn? Who are the people, the others who have impacted me? What was it about them that just was like, oh my gosh, I am so glad that our paths have crossed. It might be somebody who was in your life for no more than an hour. So when I think about forgiveness, and I want to share this in a way that feels like it's tying a few of these pieces together. My camera just went weird. Did it go blurry? Maybe if I do that, it'll focus again. Don't know. Oh, I think I'm back. Thanks, Liz. I love the women in my community. So how do I want to tie this together for you? I had an experience in my life. It happened about 15 and a half years ago. I had 4 children under 8. My youngest was 5 months old when their dad decided that he couldn't do it anymore. And literally overnight, he packed a bag and walked away. I had 4 children under 8. And I remember we had these beautiful raised vegetable gardens. We're on a little farm. And I remember walking out and sitting on the edge of this vegetable garden. It was made of, those big sleepers, railway sleepers, the edges of it, sitting there, and there is no words that describe the conversation that was in my head. Having to tell my children that were about to wake up that their dad was gone. The utter weight of the responsibility, the unbelievable grief of the picture that I had imagined was going to be my life was suddenly gone. And it all happened within a few hours. It was over. And I knew it was over. The woman that I was in that moment was the woman who thought about and told that whole story from a place of being a victim. It was all his fault. Everything was his fault. And I stayed in that place of being the victim for several years. Now, the woman that I was when I met my first husband was somebody who had almost no confidence in myself. I wanted somebody else to tell me the best decision to make, who I was, to confirm that I had any value at all in the world, that I was worthy of love. I didn't have any of that belief system for myself. So I was worthy of love and belonging because he chose me. I married him because he asked me, and I was so glad that somebody thought I was worthy of asking. Now, as I started to mature, which, it always just makes my stomach kind of churn when I talk about finally maturing after I'd already had 4 children. I would have liked to tell you that I grew up before I had my kids, but I didn't. As I started to mature and look at things differently and think about the woman that I was, I can see my responsibility, 100% responsibility for how I got into that place in my life. There were 1,000 red flags that we were never suited. There were so many red flags that I chose not to look at. I didn't want to see them. My family never thought it was a good idea. He never got along with my family, my sisters, my mum. And so I just slowly was cut off from all of them. My choice, my responsibility. I saw it happening and I let it happen. My responsibility. When I met Laurie, my husband now, I was a very different woman. It was over 7 years later. So my youngest son at that point was sort of 7.5, around that age. So I'd spent a lot of time being 100% responsible for our little bubble, our beautiful bubble. It was a really beautiful bubble. And when I met Laurie, one of the things that he said to me that was a profound understanding for me, and I didn't understand it in the moment, but I did in hindsight, was I fell in love with you because you didn't need me. We were partners. We were equals. I wasn't looking for anyone to save me. I wasn't looking for anyone to tell me that I was okay. I wasn't looking for anyone to say, you're worthy of love. You're doing a great job. I didn't need any of that. I'd grown up. What I thought of me was more important than what he thought of me. And I chose him because of what I think of him, not because what he thought of me. Does that make sense to everybody? In the thread of what we're talking about. So when we think about our personal relationships, it's a fascinating thing, our intimate relationships, which is something that we haven't really touched on in this connection with others. That's pretty crucial. It's who were you being? Who was the woman that you were when you met your partner? And who is the woman that you are now? And if you're single, the question is, are you the woman that your ideal man would fall in love with? And sometimes we can use that as a beautiful little tweak, whether we've been in a relationship for many, many years, whether it's a new relationship or whether we're single. The same question remains. Who are we being? Because we are responsible for this life we're living. Believe it or not, we teach people how to treat us. We teach people how to treat us. I'll never forget somebody saying to me sometime down the track, after my first husband and I had separated, and I was doing my victim thing. Do you know, I brushed every tooth, I changed every nappy, I did every school run, every birthday party, I've got a great list of everything that I did, which of course was just everything that he didn't do. And she said to me, did you ever let him? I was like, there was the moment of, don't challenge me. I'm being, righteous in my victimness. It feels really good to have somebody else to blame. Oh, it feels so good. And then with time to contemplate and time to think about it and time to just digest that hard little nugget, the answer is no. I did everything so much better in my own head than he would. He wasn't going to do things my way or no way. I still have that tendency. I still get to catch myself on that. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about awareness. And sometimes somebody will just say something that's like, that feels kind of uncomfortable. But how does that fit on me? Where has that shown up in my life? How has that influenced my connection with others? So did I forgive him? Yeah, I did. How did I forgive him? By understanding that we are all a product of our environment. Do I still have resentment? Yeah, I do. Do I look forward to learning how to let go of that? Yeah, I do. Because the only person that's hurting is me. So this is a beautiful opportunity for reflection. Relationships that have been, people that have broken your heart, people that have hurt you, people that we feel are undeserving of forgiveness, because it's so easy to come up with a lot of righteous reasons why people aren't. If in our prison systems we had people who were teaching emotional intelligence, kindness, connection, an understanding of environment, compassion, people that came out of prison systems would be in a very different place. If I never grew up in the way that I have, if I hadn't done the intense amount of self-reflection, taking 100% responsibility for everything that has happened in my life, then there's a good chance my children would simply have repeated the same things. And whether they do or not is not my responsibility. That's another amazing aha moment. Our kids are here to live the life they've been born to live, to learn the lessons that they need to learn in their own time, in their own way. But what we can do as mothers, aunties, matriarchs in our communities is be the reflection of how we want society to look, to be the role models. And if you're still looking to grasp that little thread of life purpose, what lights me up? Maybe that's it. Who are you being every time you connect with another person? Every time. Every time Laurie leaves for work, I give him a heart hug. What's a heart hug? It's when you hug the other way, heart to heart. And we pause. It's not a kiss on the cheek. See you, babe. Have a good day. Every time I go in to wake up my gorgeous, nearly 16-year-old son in the morning, I make sure that I walk in the morning with time to wake him up slowly. 15-year-old boys don't wake up quickly. It's my pocket of time, because once he's awake, he's not so interested in mum anymore. He's gone. So that's when I grab, and I do get teary. I get teary. I think about it every time, because my 3 other children have gone. I don't get to do that anymore. I don't get to do that anymore. I'm lucky to see them once or twice a year. I haven't seen my eldest son for over a year and a half. Oh, it's Christmas. Every moment is precious with every person. Don't be dismissive. Don't be dismissive. It's okay to take time to breathe, feel, the frustration, the anger, the aggravation, the resentment, feel it. But then gather these tools, gather these ways of being that allow you to reconnect. And not everybody is somebody that you want in your life. I don't want to spend time with my ex-husband. I don't. And I don't believe he wants to spend time with me. There's too much pain. Have I forgiven him? Yes, I have. Do I want to spend time with him? No, I don't. You don't have to be so in love with every person in the world that you want to spend time with them. That's just bollocks. That's never going to happen. Allow people to be different. Allow people to live their own lives. You know, as we go through and embrace this slow social movement that I am so wanting everybody to take on board. If you didn't hear me talk about it yesterday, we get to approach social media as we do the slow food movement. It's a gift. It's a gift. If we can see social media like, oh my gosh, I get to just see what I've, got this beautiful friend who does mosaic workshops, and she lives a million miles away. I don't get to see her. We went to school together, and being able to just see what she's up to in her life is a delight. I wouldn't see that if we didn't have social media. Being able to see the florists all around the world, the pandas and their panda nannies, makes me so happy. Being connected to the people that inspire me, have that gift for saying something that lands in my brain like, oh my gosh, how did I not think of it like that? But scrolling past people, the lack of humanity, the lack of connection, the lack of interest, the dismissal, that's not treating other people as we want to be treated. That's not being connected to our humanity. That's not being a loving human that sees the human in the skin bag. One day I'll come up with a better way of describing it. But we get to see the human. I have this little practice, and if you haven't done my gratitude practice, reach out, let me know. I think it's like $47 or something. It's so life-changing. Walking on the beach this morning, and there are a lot of more people out and about. We've got spring has sprung, which is just so delightful. And I was looking at this woman walking towards me, and as she was walking towards me from a long way off, I was looking at her and I was thinking about her as a young baby being wrapped in a blanket by her parents. I couldn't see how old she was because she was still some way off. And then thinking about, I wonder what she was like as a child and if she had siblings. And then how she was with her dog, interacting with her dog. And then as she got closer, I could see she was older. And I thought, I wonder if she's had kids or is married or who she's going home to. She wasn't just a walking skin bag. She's a human with a story. And I'd actually love to know that story, get to know people. What's their story? Who are they? If somebody piques your interest on social media, take time. Who are they? If they've shared something that brings you some delight or inspires you, give it a heart, leave a comment. And as you go through and slowly start to look at your social media, if there's people, we follow people we don't even like. It's a bizarre human thing. Unfollow. Don't follow out of a curiosity of that sort of, I'm wondering where you're going to fall over your tongue or fall on your ass. If there's an ugliness or a jarring, if it's not serving you, unfollow. It's not personal. It's just like, this is what I need to fill up my world with the things that bring me delight and support me to be the woman I want to be. I don't want to be exposed to a whole lot of stuff on social media that makes me scared to death of going out the door, that makes me terrified for humanity. I can find it if I look for it quite quickly. I don't want to fill my brain with that. Why would I? Who does that serve? Who does it serve? We feel a sense of guilt if we're not immersed in the misery and the heartache of the suffering that people are having across the globe. It's not how we're wired to live. We are tribal creatures. We're designed to be connected to a little community. If you think back in tribal days, they didn't even know another country existed. They knew other tribes existed on this one little block of land called Australia or America or wherever you are. We're not supposed to lose our love for life in something we have no control over. If you want to donate something to help a cause in another country, or, you know, that's all, that philanthropic, that charity, two different things, by the way. If you want to nurture that and contribute to that, that's awesome. But if you lose yourself in it and it's not contributing to you being the person you need to be in your life to live the life that you want to live, that's going to have the most amazing impact on the people around you, then you get to ask yourself, what's the value of losing yourself in it? Because it makes a big difference. A big difference. So we have with us now, again, Friday, Marcus. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Edwina. Do nice, deep and meaningfuls on this Friday morning. Holy moly.
It is. It's been a half an hour of digging in, and it's going to be an amazing way to wind up with another perspective on forgiveness.
Just a light chat for a Friday morning.
I know. And I think it actually can be. I think it can be. I think when we get our minds around this, it can lift a great big heavy weight off. So it's kind of a nice way, I think, to launch ourselves into the weekend. So for those that haven't connected with Marcus before, and I'm hoping that everyone tuned into, if you haven't yet, the conversation that we had on Tuesday, because it was absolutely magic. But Marcus is the founder of 100 Not Out, the wellness couch, and is a wealth of wisdom on longevity and living an exceptional life. So today we're going to look at the role of forgiveness in living an exceptional life. So Marcus, let us know your thoughts. Pretty please.
Oh, sure. Well, I know I can see Liz Sefton here in the Zoom that I'm in. I saw Liz up at Noosa recently, and I gave a talk for Cindy O'Meara's, Health and Nutrition Summit, and it was called the 7 what ifs of longevity, nutrition, and lifestyle. But I was grieving before I even gave the talk because I had to delete, I reckon, about 50 or 60 slides from it. It would have been 10 or 12 what ifs if I could have just taken over the stage, which I personally hate it when speakers do that. So there's no way I was going to do that. But one of the big ones that I would have included is, what if our personal, our family, our intimate relationships had more of an impact on our physical health than our nutrition, than what we ate? Because, I have this kind of guffaw. It almost sounds like a condescending one-liner, but it's like, you can go gluten-free or forgive your parents. What do you choose? And sadly, most people are choosing to go gluten-free than to forgive their parents, or to unconditionally love and accept their intimate partner, or to see the benefits of their children being so wildly opposite to them, or their siblings being so completely different. But, they're cutting out, this, or they're cutting out that, or they're perfecting this, or they're perfecting that. And I'm like, oh, as a former vegan that was definitely barking up the wrong tree for 7 years, I shudder to think how many of us, if we were truly honest with ourselves, have been barking up the wrong tree in many areas of life, almost as an escape mechanism to not deal with the big chat, like this Friday morning chat on forgiveness, to not deal with the awkward conversation of unconditional acceptance, of removing the fine print from the contract of love that we might have with our parents or our siblings or our children or our partners. And yeah, it's a space I definitely love to talk in, because it's a conversation that so few people like to have.
Yep. I'm all in. I'm all in, Marcus. Tell me, where did this come from? Was there a story? Is
Oh,
there?
yeah, I know exactly where it came from, because I had the most cushiest middle class, no one's really died in my life upbringing, which I actually think a lot of people can relate to, because I also know there'd be pretty much everyone on the call here has had some, for a better term, premature death, unexpected death. But there's also so many people that haven't. Like, and I still, and again, touch wood, but like, my grandparents have died, but both of my parents are still alive. My siblings are still alive. Touch wood, I haven't buried a child. Like, all of the things that we think of almost like, our worst nightmares, they're the ones that get the attention. But for the large majority of people, they actually haven't had that. There's a bit of an order to people's lives in that, they buried their parents, that's to be expected. They buried their grandparents, that's to be expected. So I think this came for me out of the almost like the vacuum of, I don't want to call it normalcy, but it's like there was nothing clickbaity or headlining about my upbringing. It was just so standard. And so I've always found gratitude in the contrast of great difficulty. Like, I'm more grateful. It's a sadistic thing to say, but when people die, you go to a funeral, and I won't swear, but like, funerals are great reminders to be grateful for your life. I like interviewing war survivors, because it's just a reminder to be grateful for your life. Like, whether it's like you've got financial challenges, or maybe you do have health challenges or challenges in your relationships. Like, when someone dies or someone has like had a brush with death, I feel like you get a spike of gratitude. So I think that curiosity has been born out of just a very standard, for a better term, upbringing. And the more I've interviewed people about it, and the more conversations I've had, and then the more I've worked with clients over the years, you realize how much this burden of a resistance to forgiveness, like, you realize how much of a burden, and, for a better term, a roadblock that creates for people in living their best life. And again, I feel like if there were maybe only 3 or 5 things that you could do to live a great life, an unconditional love for other people would have to be there. Like you said earlier, it's not that you have to spend time with them. You can still unconditionally love your ex-husband or your ex-wife, choose not to spend time with them. But mastering that art, and sadly, it's not an art that has really been taught that well by our parents, maybe our grandparents, but, resentment is rife amongst humanity. And I heard you talking earlier about social media. That does nothing to improve it. In a matter of fact, it only exacerbates it, because the more voyeuristic we become about, like you said, like even following people you don't like, the more voyeuristic we become, the more judgmental we become, because the more you see of other people's lives, no matter how fake it might be, the more you judge. And when you judge, you automatically make it impossible to unconditionally love. Because if you think about it, judgment is putting some level of fine print on the contract. So if you judge someone as being happy when they shouldn't be, sad when they shouldn't be, suck it up, princess, or too optimistic, or why don't you care more, or you should worry more, or you're not worrying enough, or as soon as you feel like that about someone else, you've made a judgment. And again, that might sound really idealistic and utopian, but at the same time, it probably shows how difficult forgiveness can be for people. But at the same time, and I'd be more than happy, I know I'm kind of just chewing a leg off a chair here, but I'd be really happy, because in preparing for this interview, there's slides I often show in a talk. If you're happy for me to, I can show you probably the study that gets me and gets others every time. So I'll bring this. Can you perhaps host disable screen sharing? If you can allow me, if it's easy. I didn't give you any warning about this, because I only
no, it's perfect. I've actually got Gia. Can you make Marcus the host, please?
Oh, here we go. Cool. So this is a study that came out of Harvard. Just give me a thumbs up, Edwina, that you can see my screen.
Yep, perfect.
So 125 undergrad students. Now, the amateur researcher in me is like, oh, that's not very many people. But what I will tell you is that a lot of research is done on a small group of people and it gets international acclaim. So 125 isn't as small as you might think. But regardless of how many people this was done on, I have, for want of a better term, anecdotally tested this on thousands of people in conference rooms and events over the years. So I want you that is watching or listening to this to just put yourself in this study. Don't think about these 125 people. Just think of yourself right now. So rank the relationship with your parents. So do it separately, your mum and your dad. Essentially give them a score. Is the relationship with your mum very close, warm and friendly, tolerant, or strained and cold? Should be pretty easy to give yourself a score. And then do the same for your dad, whether they're dead or alive. It doesn't matter. It's your relationship to them right now. And then again, do it for both. Very close, warm and friendly, tolerant, or strained and cold. Now, when you have yourself this number or this score, I now want you to think about your own physical health when I share the results of this study with you. So here are the results. They looked at the results 35 years after they had all of the scores. 91% of the people who had tolerant or strained and cold relationships with their mum had suffered a serious medical crisis by their mid-50s. Now, we've got to be clear here. This serious medical crisis can be many things. So a lot of people go, oh, what about this and what about that? It's like, it's very broad. Even in the study, it's very broad. So it could be coronary artery disease, high blood pressure, ulcers, alcoholism. Like, you can see the range is broad. These people had twice the risk of a medical crisis than those who were very close or warm and friendly with their mum. 82% of the people who had a tolerant or strained and cold relationship with their dad had suffered a serious medical crisis by their mid-50s. So automatically, my insight is that your relationship with your mum is 10% or 9% to be accurate, more powerful, influential on your physical health than the relationship with your dad. Now, again, that's just a numbers game. But here's what's really interesting. 100% of the people who had a tolerant or strained and cold relationship with both parents had suffered a serious medical crisis by their mid-50s.
Wow.
Now, this is pretty awkward. A lot of people don't really like that study because it can be very confronting for people. So it's probably almost rude for me to share that so abruptly in this interview right now. But I do it to trigger some form of like context, because society will have us go on a diet, save more money, get a better job, go on a holiday in order to find happiness and fulfillment. But what if you could find physical health, unconditional love, ease and grace just by improving your family relationships? Now, I've just shown you a study about parents, but you can apply that to your spouse, to your children. You can even apply it to yourself. You can look at those 4 gradations of a relationship and go, well, how am I to myself? Am I strained? Am I cold? Think of your self-talk. You're not just a mum. You're not just a team member. You're not just an anything. Like, that's a pretty tolerant, maybe even cold use of the English language to describe yourself. So are you warm and loving to yourself? This is what we really need to consider when it comes to our own physical health. It's the superfood of physical health, which a lot of people will never, ever really talk about. You can't make a smoothie out of it, but you can definitely make an exceptional life out of it if you can master the art of, again, unconditional love and acceptance. I really need to stop talking. I've only had one coffee and I'm chewing your ear off, Edwina and listeners. So I'm just going to stop so you can ask a question or make a comment.
I remember the first time I interviewed you after I released a replay, I was like, just take a deep breath before you listen, because there's a lot coming this way. And it's always awesome, Marcus. You don't need to apologize for any of it. It's perfect.
Well, thank you.
I think as I listen to you, I've had the women that have been in my community for a while know that there's been this massive transformation in the last year. My relationship with my mum from early first beginning teenage years to 50 was curling up in a fetal position on the floor quite often after we'd had an exchange, like really, really tough for many, many, many years. And just in the last year or two, it has finally softened, and she's going to be 90 next year. So I am so grateful now that I hung in there, because there were many times when I really wanted to shut the door forever. I don't really know I can't give anybody an answer to what enabled me to keep the door open and to keep slowly allowing and hoping and trusting. But I feel that there was always just that element of hope that one day it would be different. One day it'd change, and it did eventually. But I think if I had heard what you just shared 10 years ago, it would have been a difficult thing. Like, how do I fix this? Because it was all in my mind at that time. It was all because of her. And I think it's so easy to just make the other person responsible all the time. It's not easy to hear. But how do you address that?
Okay, well, you've seen my slides, I'm sure. I'm going to show this slide that I didn't show just then. And this is the ways that, you know, I suggest and give people a bit of a framework to look at this. And again, this is the last slide, and I always have about another 20 after this, but you can forgive, but not forget. I think this whole thing, forgive and forget, is an absolute joke. Anyone that says forgive and forget is just, no, there's just no way. Again, having interviewed Holocaust survivors that lost their entire family, you can forgive, but you don't forget. There's no way, because you don't want to forget essentially the family that was, that fell by the wayside. You can accept the apology you'll never get. Now, this is a tricky game, but it's very relevant for those that have deceased people that where this needs to happen. There's accepting the differences. And now this is the part where it's like, this is the dangerous game between like forgiveness and indifference. Like, indifference for me is not a great result. Like, it's so neutral. It's like so sweet, and it's just, there's no love, there's no hate, there's indifference. It's like, it feels like a real sticking point. It's like, I don't want to cross the bridge to really appreciate the differences. Like, why was it amazing that you married your ex-husband, and why was it equally amazing that you split up, and why is it equally amazing that you remain separate? Like, that's an appreciation, you know, over an acceptance. And that's tricky. Like, I suppose, you know, my dad's dad was an alcoholic, and my dad found his dad dead in the bed one night, and my dad said, good. Like, my dad was like, good, I no longer have this trauma and drama and violence and everything in the house. You know, all these years of protecting my mum, you know, now I can just create some kind of, he was so glad his dad died. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, one, imagine feeling that way about your dad. And then two, how is my dad like the best dad ever after having gone through that childhood upbringing and that young adult and all the rest of it? And I think this is why I keep on saying, and I was writing down some notes as you spoke around your relationship with your mum, like, forgiveness takes time. It's not a biohack. It's not something quick, you know. I have what I call a love letter template, and it's not mine. And I'm so happy to share it with your audience, Edwina, because again, it's not mine. I'd have to email you the Word document and you can send it to everyone. But I think it's really important that people recognize that you could forgive, you know, everyone listening, let's just say, you know, you're going to forgive your mum. You could forgive your mum today and be filled with grace and appreciation. And then she could call you tomorrow and call you a stupid loser. And because I'm not going to swear. And it kind of gets tested all over again. And this is, you spoke about hope. Like, this is all what forgiveness is. It's a relationship with time as much as it is anything. Because I promise you, as soon as you forgive, that forgiveness gets challenged. That's just the way it is. But it's a bit like personal growth and even just wanting to live a great life. As soon as you know, you can't unknow. As soon as you know you love wanting to live your best life, you really hate the idea of mediocrity and average, and it stares you in the face. And it's like, you know, I often laugh, like, disciplined people read books on self-discipline, organized people read books on buying back time, healthy people read books on health. And it's like, it's because it's just this weird sadistic thing that once you know something, you can't unknow, but you kind of really want to get good at it. So if you know that forgiveness is a gap and a hole for you. Now you've kind of been infected with the disease of wanting to improve your levels of forgiveness. And I maintain, as someone that feels like I've been a little bit obsessed with this for at least 10 years, a lot of it is doing, as you know, our mutual good friend Kim Morrison talks about, is joining all the dots of your life. Like, life is a game of dots. And I'm obsessed with doing, as Kim suggests, as joining the dots. Like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Join the dots in an empowering way, not in a victim way. Oh, because my mom didn't love me and my dad didn't love me and my mom was an alco and my dad cheated on her and left us when I was 2. And it's like, no, well, that's what happened. But join the dots of why was that amazing? Like, make a script that's Hollywood worthy, that's compelling, that makes you go, that is a freaking amazing story.
Yeah.
Like, make your rags to riches story. And maybe your mum was the villain in the movie, or maybe your dad was the villain in the movie. Maybe you've been the villain. Maybe you've been the average sibling that's stolen all the money and now you're going to work a way to give it back. I don't know. Yeah. But work out the Hollywood script that makes this movie have an incredible ending and a great message and a really good story to tell that is really empowering, because forgiveness, when it's done well, can be so empowering. Yeah. And when I share stories of people that have forgiven what we would call the most like unforgivable acts, whether it's their murders that have their daughters that have been murdered and the father forgives the murderer, or the Holocaust survivor like Alice Hurt Sommer, oldest female survivor of the Holocaust, lived to age 110. You know, her husband was gassed and she buried her son and she still forgave Hitler, saying, we're all sometimes good, sometimes bad. You know, I look at the good. I know the bad is there, but I look at the good. It's like, how does a Holocaust survivor like have this life view, this world belief? It's like, you know, if it's good enough for Alice Hurt Sommer, it's good enough for us to, again, you know, work on our levels of forgiveness rather than our diet or our exercise or, you know, whatever it is that we're doing. This is the stuff that adds a whole lot more quality of life. Yep. And arguably, as the research may suggest, a whole lot more physical vitality as well.
In the joining the dots, in my mind, I was thinking about the decisions that I've made and how I've kind of got to this point. And I think if we come back to how do I want to feel and what's the life I want to live, if I want to feel in love with my life, then I get to work out who I need to be in order to have the relationship that I want with the people in my life.
Yeah, well, forgiveness is a game of leadership and it all starts from within, right? Yeah, 100%. It's you first. It's actually a beautifully selfish thing. It's you making a decision for you to choose to forgive. You cannot control how the other person responds. And there's all types of one-liners around this in terms of, you know, not forgiving or hating is, you know, drinking, what is it, like drinking the poison chalice and expecting the other person to die or something, or, you know, but hate affects the hater more than the hated. If you're not forgiving, that's affecting you more than them. But when you do that on the opposite, it's like, no, I'm going to forgive for me, for my own like selfish reasons, and selfish being a great thing, self-ish. It's actually because I'm going to do this for me. And that is where to start from this. Like, this is not about the other person. It's actually all about you. It's personal growth. You know, and a lot of the time it starts within the family dynamic.
Yeah. My bumper sticker, if anyone wants a bumper sticker, is if it is to be, it's up to me.
Mm-hmm. 10 little words,
it's up to
2 letters. That's it.
Yeah. Absolutely magic, Marcus. I knew you'd nail it.
Don't know about that, but I hope it's been helpful.
It has. It's been absolutely amazing. So look, I don't know what we'll chat via email how you want to share what you've got, whether you've got images of some of the slides that I can send out. Or
yeah, sure. I can send you some more of the slides that I've sent. I think, you know, I do a lot of this work in a small group up in Byron Bay. I'll be doing it 3 times next year. So I think I said in the previous interview, Edwina, like there's 8 areas of life that I work in, and on day 1 in Byron, we do life, purpose, movement, social, and nutrition. And then on day 2, we do family, where I do this forgiveness piece, and then growth, wealth, and spirit. And so I feel like with forgiveness, a lot of the time, it's really hard to do it at home whilst the dishwasher's on, there's washing to do, there's dinner to make, and so on. So I think if this is again, it's a bit of an overused word, but if this is triggering people to go, you know what, I actually need to do something about this because I've got things or relationships holding me back, then yeah, I just encourage people to connect with me and I can share you dates. I'm putting dates together, but I'm definitely going to do one in the middle of Feb next year. But it's only small groups. It's like 12 to 16 people max. So it's intimate, it's snot and tears worthy. So you've got to come ready to do the work. And that's probably the type of, I suppose, environment where people could make some serious growth on this. But in the meantime, I'll send you the slides. I'll also send you that love letter template or that forgiveness letter template, which is a really good sentence completer document. It's a really good place to start. And you're happy to share, podcast interviews and all types of things that can give people more on this. Because if there's one thing I've learned about forgiveness, it's not a quick fix. It's an ongoing process. So happy to share as much as I can on all of that.
And I know that some of the most transformational moments that I've had in my life is when I put myself in somebody else's hands. You can know all the work, you can read all the books, and you can kind of sit in your own little bubble and try and do this work. But when you just find a person you trust and you put yourself in their hands and go, I'm going to do the work, guide me. That's when things happen. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We are in this individualistic, this kind of, I get to do all this. I know the things, I've got the books, but it just doesn't work so well is when you find.
And I'm not an empath, so I actually don't give a stuff about anyone else's lives enough to take any of it home to sleep. And I don't lose sleep over anyone else's poor relationship. So I find that holds me in good stead when I'm running events, because I don't get snot and teary with them either. I just let them cry as much as you want, bring a box of tissues, and I think that's the hardest thing is it's hard to be in a room by yourself when you've got so much emotion. But yeah, like you said, feeling held particularly in this personal growth space, and you and I have done a lot together over the years, Edwina. I think being in a room where you feel held and trusted and where there's no filters, again, where it's unconditional, I think that's a very important space to be.
I can't not bring it up because it's just right in my head, but this homogenization of men and women and how we all get to kind of be the same. I do talk to 90% women, but when I get somebody like you, Marcus, and you bring that beautiful masculine energy, I just love it. It gives a balance to this conversation that's pure gold. Thank you.
It's so funny because 98% of my clients are women, because I actually don't enjoy working with men that much, because I've got two sisters. So I grew up in a house full of girls. So I am just so much better with feminine energy than masculine. I love all my mates, don't get me wrong. Yeah. And I have 3 sons, so I've definitely got some masculine energy that I need to help them out with as well. But I do think there is a beauty to feminine energy that, again, I relate with probably, I don't want to say a whole lot more, but I just love working with feminine energy because in a personal growth space, you women are a whole lot more vulnerable and, for want of a better term, in a sadistic manner, you're happy to do the work.
Yeah.
Whereas, boy, oh boy, I mean, men want to do the work, but they want to do it at their own pace in a different way.
You have to spend a lot of time driving. If you want to work with men, you've got to sit side by side.
You can't make eye contact side by side. You got to look out the window. You might have to slip a stubby into their hand.
Good. This is a perfect way to wind up on a Friday. Thank you so much, Marcus.
No worries. Thanks for having me, team. Have a great day. Good weekend.
Lots of love. Bye, guys.
Bye.